Okay, I have been told that we are good to go. The YouTube streaming is down, so we will not have video broadcasting, but we do have audio, but the video is being recorded, so it will be uploaded, but those listening from home will only be able to hear the audio at this time because YouTube is down. So, good evening and welcome to the September 14th, 2020 special call meeting of the Shawnee City Council and the Planning Commission. I am Mayor Michelle Disler. I'll be chairing this meeting. All members of the governing body and Planning Commission are participating remotely. I'll do a roll call for the City Council members at this time. Councilmember Thomas.
Present.
Councilmember Zimmerman.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Kimley.
Present.
Councilmember Larson Banal.
Present.
Councilmember Nappin.
Present.
Councilmember Constance.
Present.
Councilmember Chowfie.
Present.
Next, I'll ask Dennis Busby, Chair of the Planning Commission, to do a roll call for his members.
Commissioner Beanhoff.
Here.
Commissioner Bingham.
Here.
Commissioner Montgomery.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Nemec.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Braley.
Here.
Commissioner Wise. Commissioner Wise. There's no answer. I got an email late that Commissioner Roth is going to be unable to attend it. Commissioner Willoughby. Here. Commissioner Busby is here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I do see Commissioner Wise is on the roll, so he just must be muted.
I think we can all agree we can count him in.
Yeah, it does appear he is present on the participant list.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because tonight's meeting is a special call, the City Council and Planning Commission members will only be able to discuss the one item on the agenda. Also, our regular City Council meeting is scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some ground rules. I want to make sure all remote participants keep their devices muted until I ask for comments. We'll attempt to use the raise hand feature in Zoom so I can recognize you. In order for our transcriptionists to be able to produce verbatim minutes, please also state your name when you speak. Next, I'd like to go over some emergency procedures. Due to the COVID-19 situation, we're taking action to minimize attendance at our meetings. We're asking residents to stay home, especially if attendance is not essential, and listen to the broadcast of the meeting from our website at cityofshawnee.org. All governing meetings will comply with the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The only item on the agenda to discuss is the Comprehensive Plan Revitalization Kickoff. On July 27, 2020, governing body approved a contract with Oshner, Hair & Hair to include the services of Clarion Associates for the revitalization of the city's comprehensive plan. We will have one presentation this evening. I'll turn it over to City Manager Sunderman to say a few words before turning it over to Kim Boone and Tressa Carter-Hawes with Oshner, Hair & Hair. Welcome, Nolan, Ken, and Tressa.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to you and the council for your support of moving forward with Oshner Hair & Hair to take a look at our comprehensive plan. Our city staff is very excited to get this project moving forward and all excited to kick this off tonight. So thank you, and thank you to Chairman Busby, and glad that we can get the Planning Commission and City Council together this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Ken Boone with Oshner Hair & Hair. Again, we're very excited to work with them as well as Clarion, and I think they've got a great presentation and informational session to get us kicked off this evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ken. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan. Again, my name is Ken Boone with Oshner Hair & Hair. We're very excited to be here to kick off the project. We've entitled this work session number 1, but we certainly have more in our future. So with that, next slide, please. One of the things we'd like to do is just to get to know you a little bit better. I know this is really hard in the time of COVID right now, but if you could, based on the list that was just put up, starting with Alan, it looks like, and just introduce yourself to everybody, whether you're on the Planning Commission or Council, and maybe the number of years you've been serving. We just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to engage with each other here just for a second.
Would it be easier if I called names and had them speak?
Sure, you bet.
Because when they speak, it changes order in the panelists, in the participant list. So we'll start with Councilmember Thomas.
Sure, my name is Tammy Thomas, and I represent Ward 1 on the Shawnee City Council. I've been serving in this capacity since January of this year.
Thank you. Councilmember Zimmerman.
Good evening, Matt Zimmerman, Ward 1, City Council. Since January, Rose is 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years into it, and prior to that, 14 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Great.
Thank you. Councilmember Jenkins.
Councilmember Eric Jenkins, representing Ward 2. I was with the Planning Commission for 20 years, and I've been on the City Council for 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kimley.
Oh, yep, Mike Kemley, Ward 2, and I've been on the City Council for about 7.5 years.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson Bonnell.
Lisa Larson Bonnell, council member since November of 2018, representing Ward 3, which is most of the area that is west of Woodland.
Thank you. Councilmember Mappin.
Yes, my name is Kurt Knappen. Was elected and started in January. I also represent Ward 3 on the far west side of the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Constance.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Constance. I represent Ward 4 and was elected and began my term January of 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Jill Chelsea. I also represent Ward 4 and was just elected this past November, so just started serving in January of this year.
Thank you. Commissioner Busby.
Yes, name is Dennis Busby. I've been on the Planning Commission for some years. I don't know how long anymore. Sorry.
Commissioner Beanhoff.
Yes, this is Bruce Beanhoff. I've been on the Planning Commission for approximately 12 years, and prior to that, I was on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for about 3 years.
Thank you. Commissioner Bingham.
Hi, Carrie Bingham. I believe I was officially 1 year in July, so I'm one of the newbies.
Thank you. Commissioner Montgomery.
Good evening, John Montgomery. I have been on the Planning Commission for a little over 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson.
Hello, my name is Kathy Peterson. I'm a Planning Commission member in my second term, so I believe it's about 5.5 years. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Nunez.
Yes, this is William Munnick. I've been on the commission with same thing as Carrie Bingham about a year now, a little over a year. And before that was very involved in Shawnee EDC and Chamber.
Commissioner Smith.
Hi, Les Smith, been on the commission 5 years or so, about the same amount of time as Kathy Peterson. I do everything she tells me to do, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Thank you. Commissioner Brayley.
Good evening, this is Randy Brayley. I'm on the Planning Commission. I believe I'm coming up on my 6th year, or might have completed my 6th year. Prior to that, I was on the Park Board, and prior to that, co-chaired the Good Starts Here branding committee.
Commissioner Wise.
Commissioner Wise, I've been on the Planning Commission, I think it's over 8 years at this point. I'm also the liaison to the Shawnee Downtown Partnership.
Commissioner Willoughby.
Hi, Alan Willoughby. I live in Ward 2. I've been on the Planning Commission for 7 or 8 years and was on the council for 1 year in the middle of all that.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that's all.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to do that. It's nice to put faces together as we start this journey over the next 12 months. Again, my name is Ken Boone with Auctioneer Hair and Hair, and I am the project manager for the comprehensive plan revitalization. And Auctioneer Hair and Hair has been in Kansas City since 1910. So we are a local company that has a local, obviously embedded locally, but we also do a lot of work nationally as well. And so we're thrilled to be here. We set our hearts on winning this project, and because we knew we had the right attitude and the right drive to get you ultimately a great plan to chart your future. And so with that, I'll have the rest of our team who's on tonight introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Teresa Carter-Hawes. I will be assisting Karen in the role of Assistant Project Manager, and I'm also one of the primary planners on this project. So I'll be working on every single part of this plan, helping to facilitate all the different parts of public engagement that we get to do with your community, and just echoing what Ken said, we are super excited to be here and thrilled to work with your community. And we've got our partner, Darcy, on the call as well.
Thanks, Teresa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Darcy White with Clarion Associates. I'm actually based in Denver, but I've done a fair amount of work over the years in the Kansas City area. And so really excited to be part of the team. I will be primarily serving in the role of bringing our experience working nationally with communities on comprehensive plans. That's really kind of my focus. And so I'll be involved in the policy end of things and just sort of thinking through how to make this project unique for Shawnee and how to make it really into a plan that you can use and be excited about at the end of the day. Thank you.
Okay. So again, the team that you're working with throughout the length of this project is Oxnard Hair and Hair, and then Clarion, you just met Darcy, and their national perspective we're going to bring to the project, and then Canyon Research Southwest. Canyon Research is a market and economics advisor. They do a lot of market studies for us, economic studies, highest best use studies in our planning work. And so we see as a part of comprehensive planning a real important aspect is to understand your market and understand honestly how you fit in the region and in the larger MSA. And so Canyon Research gives us that look, and so they take sort of at first an independent look, and then we embed them in as we start doing some more of these big idea generation and concepts. So we're very proud of this team and the expertise that we're going to bring to you for a successful project. Okay, so a couple of things. So today's meeting, we just wanted to make sure that everybody is on the same page about what this project is, what the comprehensive plan is, what we're going to be setting out to embark on here in the next 12 months. So we want to make sure that everybody has a full understanding of what that task is. And then secondly, we have an ask. Next page, Teresa. And that ask is this idea of we all have a role to play and we all have expectations. And so for any of the people who are going to engage in this project, from stakeholders to the commission and finally the council, we have a few things we'd like to ask of you. That we want your participation, that you're going to give us honest and open feedback. Without that, we're really not going to be able to get effective solutions for you. And so we know there are difficult things to talk about. We know there are things that people won't agree about, and that's okay. We just want to have that openly and honestly so we can understand what those are, because if we don't, there's no way to put a plan together to really effectively address those issues. Ultimately, when we win your trust, we want you to be an advocate for the plan. Hopefully we do that early enough on in the process that you know that we're going to be honest and open, and that you trust that we have your best interests at heart here. And so we want you to spread to your networks the idea that to encourage them to participate and to be a part of this plan and to give us feedback. And then that goes along with the education of your constituents, obviously. And then finally, remember the goal. The goal for the comp plan is to provide you with a roadmap for your future. And then how do we get that done? It simply isn't a vision of the future. It is how do we execute these things that we said we wanted to be. And so always it's really hard to stay focused on that wider goal. We know that. Sometimes it's death by a million cuts, right? Every little thing along the way, and you can lose the bigger goal. And so we ask you to remember that as best you can, along the way. So we are also going to do this for you. We're going to be unbiased and engaging in the way that we facilitate with your community. We need to learn a lot of things, even though we're from here. We need to learn a lot of things from the people who live, work, and play here. And so we are going to try to draw as much of that information out of them as possible so that we have a much better understanding of what the critical issues are. We will be activating productive dialogues and conversations and providing guidance on how to address some of these issues as we go along. And we're going to actively listen to people. Oftentimes people want to just tell you what they think and really don't want to listen to what you have to say. And I think one of the things that you can expect from us is this idea of listening and looking for understanding. And then we're technical experts in what we do on the planning side of things, and we've brought some really great people on our team to do that. And then finally, it all goes back to executing what ends up being your vision. This plan is yours, it is not ours, and so we're going to work real hard to make sure that vision is yours and you can execute on it. Okay, so we talked about the comp plan briefly before. So what is the comp plan? You guys use this as a tool. It's a policy tool, but it's also a day-to-day tool for your staff and for the boards. And so in the end, the comprehensive plan should provide that roadmap for what you want to be in the future, and then the steps that helps you get there. You should be able to make policy decisions and day-to-day decisions based on what you see in the comprehensive plan. And we hope that it will be the first thing that you look at when you have a document come in that needs to be reviewed, and not the last. So the next thing is engagement. And we know that engagement with communities, especially now, is critical. And it's actually one of our favorite parts of any project. And so we're going to make a commitment to you that we're going to engage your community and we're going to do it well. We have an entire slate of events that we're going to do, all of them working around our current COVID situation, whether those are virtual visioning sessions or when we, after the first of the year, or when we have a effective vaccine that we can actually gather as people again, we're going to do that. And so regardless, we have methodologies to move forward either way, but we're going to engage your community in many different ways and pull them into this process. And so we're going to have visioning session. We're going to have a charrette, which is really a multi-day workshop. We're going to have area workshops as well, because we know there are areas in the community that are different than the other, and they have their own unique needs and issues. So we'll have individual workshops in 3 to 4 of those areas. We're going to have open houses for the entire community to look at our work and evaluate our work. And then certainly we'll have work sessions with you so that you can be a part of this process as we go on. And then we hope that we could have a member or two as a liaison to be embedded in this project so that you can bring back to your board or to the council the direct understanding of what and the how that we're doing on the project. We want you informed, and we want you to understand where we're at on the project at any time. So we have multiple ways we're engaging with your community, and we'll pull them in for their insight as well. So the final thing here is the why. Here's the why question. Why are we updating the plan? Well, I think it's twofold. I think one, your existing plan, it's working for you. It is old. You've been adding on and updating as you go, but it's time for a new look. There is a lot of different ways that communities are approaching what a comprehensive plan is to them, and it's time to look forward, to look to the future. And then the second thing is, you had gone through your strategic plan process, and one of the things to come out of that process is this idea that the next step, how do we implement these big ideas that we have? The next step is to update the comprehensive plan. And so we really look at the comp plan as really continuing the previous good efforts that you've done to move forward the overall vision. Okay, so here on the left side of the screen, we have the United Shawnee strategic plan that was worked on and the 5 pillars that came out of that. And really moving forward, a bridging between the strategic plan and the comp plan, we want to make sure that we have an understanding of the good work you did there, and now it's about executing, providing policy and providing real roadmap for how you move forward. And that's really the relationship between the two, moving those great ideas forward. We are going to have SGR attend a couple of the conversations and meetings. SGR, who worked with you on developing the Imagine Shawnee strategic plan, making sure that the information that is contained in there is bridging to the comprehensive plan, because we think that's an important thing to do here.
So this is Teresa. So Ken just touched on this by talking through Imagine Shawnee, but you all as a community have already done really great work. You have other current planning efforts that are still very valid, one of which is the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and there are many others that we didn't list. But we want to make sure that you know that we have no intention of redoing anything, but really rather to work in these recommendations into this comprehensive plan. And so one of the benefits we see of that is that we don't need to take a deep dive into some of these topics that have already been very recently explored, saving some time, saving some money, and rather we have an opportunity to look at those and see how they can be integrated into this larger picture. So our comprehensive plan is truly that. We are taking a holistic, overarching view of your city. And so we just want to make sure you guys know that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We are going to be integrating everything that we can and using it as a way to complement the new things that we're looking at as part of this larger effort. So that's one of our first major goals that we have in this project. And another really big thing is that this plan is usable. And it might seem super obvious that you should be given a plan that you can immediately put into work, but unfortunately that's not always what happens. And so we want to assure you that we are going to really connect these priorities and these policies with an action. So we're not going to leave you with something that just has a bunch of words on a page. We're actually going to deliver you a document that has been vetted by you. It has buy-in from your community and your staff and our stakeholders, and we give you an actual roadmap on how to implement that. And Darcy's going to dive a little bit further into the tactics we have and the different tools we have to make the plan implementable and usable for you all, especially as elected officials. But we just want to stress how important that is to us and what a goal that is for us, especially on this project. So just very quickly, this is an overview of the entire process. We estimate that this will be about a 12-month project. We've kicked it off this month. And we truly view these primary 6 phases as a legitimate partnership. So, you've met our team that's on this project, us, Clarion, our market economic guy that we've got on board. And we also have been totally blown away by staff's excitement and engagement on this project. And it has been so exciting getting this project kicked off, because it truly feels like a partnership and like we're working together and really just feeling like extensions of your own staff. So we really appreciate that. It makes our jobs more fun to do. So anyway, these 6 steps here, I'll just go over these quickly. But this first phase, Discover, it's largely what it sounds like. This is when we are understanding the current conditions of Shawnee and setting a baseline. So this is when the bulk of the market and economic study will happen. It's when we're doing all of our mapping and our existing conditions analysis and just generally trying to understand what is now. This second phase, Engage, that really is happening more or less the entire time during this project. And that is what it sounds like. It's engagement. That's when we're bringing in you all, we're bringing in the community, we're meeting regularly with our stakeholder groups, and we're making sure that they understand what the project is, so that we build tons of champions of the plan, so that ultimately when we step away, the plan is in very good hands. And these next two phases, plan and refine, that's when we are taking all of the input that we got from the public and you all, and we are actually starting to write those recommendations for Shawnee. And the refine period allows us to go over them, together, and actually talk about what should stay, what needs to be modified, so that by the time we move into number 5, implement, we all are in agreement of what recommendations we want to move forward, and we can make sure that those actions that I talked about that we're putting forward are things that we all can commit to doing and carrying forward. Which brings us to sustain, and this is where we want to make sure, and this can take many different forms, but the plan here is visible. We are very clear to the public and with you all what our recommendations are and how we're going to achieve it, and we make sure that there's a clear way for your city to track this and make sure that you are staying on track to meet those goals. And so Darcy is going to talk a little bit deeper now about some of these different tools we have to structure the plan, and also these tools we have to make sure that our implementation is actually usable for you all.
Thanks, Teresa. So I think when we get to this stage of the process, it's really fun to start thinking about, how might we do this in a way that's different, that's really unique to Shawnee. And this is something we spent a lot of time talking about with Caitlin and her team as we were interviewing and kind of getting ready for these meetings. And, I've been working in comprehensive plans. I think the first plan I worked on was back in 1999, and I can say honestly that the plans we're doing today are very different than the plans we were doing over 20 years ago. And so I think what we wanted to do is just give you some initial ideas as food for thought in terms of some of the things that we've been talking about that might help make this a more engaging and useful plan for Shawnee moving forward. Next slide. So one of the things that really has fundamentally changed about comprehensive plans is just the scope of the policy framework that you have. And so in the past, comp plans were really focused primarily on land use, transportation, parks, and they were very specific in terms of topics. There's not a lot of integration between them. And that scope has really changed. The American Planning Association has really initiated a lot of that focus, but a lot of it's been driven just by public interest and discussion. And so we no longer have to, segment feedback that we're getting from the community that's, if we get a comment about a particular topic that doesn't fit within the comp plan, there is a focus that really allows us to build in an emphasis on people as well as place. And so topics like health and equity and inclusion are very much themes we're seeing in a lot of communities, as well as topics like sustainability and resilience. And I think the main thing, the point to make here is that, how Shawnee interprets these topics, or what topics rise to the surface in terms of important to you, are the ones that will end up in the plan. So one community may have a very different view of sustainability that's very focused on topics like climate action. Other communities may really look at it as simply a case of natural environment and, looking at the economy. And so that's really going to be driven by, kind of what comes out of the process. But we just want to emphasize that comprehensive plans today really are much more comprehensive than they've ever been in the past. The other thing that's really changed is just how we present the information that we get from the community. So there's a lot of times, a lot of technical information that is built into comprehensive plans that, the average person or even the elected officials, most people want to look at that once and kind of set it aside. But what we really want to focus on, what are the big ideas that you are trying to work towards as a community? And so one of the ways that this can be accomplished is to actually structure the plan around those areas of focus that you've identified. And so we see this linkage to Imagine Shawnee as a really exciting opportunity to kind of pivot off of that. Ken talked a little bit about our ability to kind of get into more specifics about how do we achieve some of these specific ideas that have come up. So, for example, diverse housing is one of those pillars. That's really going to trickle down into the land use plan. We need to make sure that the policies support that, so we can make sure that these ideas are woven throughout. But if we present that information in a way that's familiar to you and to the community, it starts to really resonate that you're working together towards a particular end goal. So we find it to be much more user-friendly and also easier for folks to focus on how the different topics relate to one another. Another way that kind of opportunity that we see and have seen in more recent comprehensive plans is really getting folks to move beyond what has always been the two-dimensional land use plan map. And so, a lot of times if you speak to someone who isn't super familiar with a comprehensive plan, they often think that the map actually is the plan, when in fact there's a lot of detail that really talks about what do we mean by those colors on the map. And so, for example, if we're talking about a mixed-use designation, and that could be different in different parts of your community. The scale could be different, the height, the density, what transitions we need to address next to adjacent neighborhoods, the mix of uses. So those are all things that we can more clearly articulate in the plan so that ultimately it's easier for you to implement, particularly for those of you on the Planning Commission to have real clarity about what our expectations are, as well as for the development community and the neighborhoods to really understand that. So that's something we really think is important. Another thing that we think is important is that ultimately this is a 10 to 20 year plan, and it's not going to happen, it's not going to be implemented overnight. And so while implementation is the focus, part of our job, we think, is to help make sure that people understand the difference between very tangible, individual projects that may be done within 1 to 3 years, but how is this plan actually going to play out on the ground in Shawnee? So what might be realistic to expect within 5 years or 10 years? When might we see that end vision goal really kind of materialize over time? So that's going to be, again, different in different parts of the community. So we want to help make sure that we're conveying that clearly in the plan as a way to set clear expectations, but also just create a realistic picture in terms of how your community is going to change over time. And then also emphasizing a couple of the points that Ken and Teresa talked about. We really, really think it's important to really dig into this idea of taking the big ideas that you guys have come up with that maybe get refined through this process that we're going through, and making sure that there's a very clear through line in the plan as to what specific things need to happen and how you might get there. And so whether that's a citywide goal or an area-specific goal and policy, we need to link that directly to the implementation strategies. And then from there, that really gets into the discussion Teresa set up in terms of how do we see if this plan is going to be successful over time. Part of that comes through just a commitment to revisiting the plan annually or biannually, whatever works for you. But the other way we look at that is thinking about specific metrics for those different goals. And so this is a process in itself of, kind of articulating what we mean by if housing is a priority, is it a certain number of units that you're targeting, is it a mix of housing? Those are all conversations that we'll be having with you over time. But that's really one way you can start to build in that tracking metric into your plan. So we are going to transition over to Ken and roll up our sleeves.
Okay, we have for the next piece of this, we have a couple of questions we'd like to do and some discussion. We're chomping at the bit to get started here, but before we do, I want to give anybody a chance to comment before we get into those two questions. When we get into those two questions, we're going to give you some instructions to make sure it's clear. We're looking for some feedback tonight. We want to make sure that this actually is starts to be a working session a little bit. We're very mindful of the time and the stop that we have here, and I'm sure I'll get the I'll get the aye when we're there. So, does anybody have any comments that they'd like to have before we start on this next piece?
I don't see any at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's get to work. Okay. So, I think you've been instructed here. We're going to ask a couple of questions, and we want you to give your comments in the chat. And we're going to record those comments, and then and really try to start to understand a couple of things, what you might want out of this process, and then what's going to make your day-to-day use of this document easier. And we're gonna dive into this a lot more, but we just wanted to sort of take a quick understanding of what some of this might be. So here's the first question. What is the one thing that must happen for you to consider this plan a success? Okay, we call this the one thing exercise. We'll run it in our visioning workshop. And the one thing is the idea about we all have to choose. We're all not going to get everything that we want. We rarely do, right? And so we have to make decisions. And often it's that one thing that you embrace that if this could happen, I would be not just a proponent, but I would be an advocate for this plan. So I want you to think about, as you think about the comprehensive plan and the way that we've laid it out in front of you, and this idea that it is a future roadmap for where the community wants to be and how we get there, right? So what is that one thing at the end of the day here that if it's been implemented, you'll say, you know what, this was a success, okay? So if you'll put that in the chat, we're going to record all of those. And it's okay to have a little silence here. So one of the things that we do as we go through these processes is we ask a lot of questions. We ask for a lot of specific feedback in people's own words. What we don't want to be, in many ways, is a filter. We don't want to be you telling us and then I write something down and then that goes as the record. We want to know what you and your community think. And so one of the things we do a lot of is this idea of tell us in your own words. And that's really what the one thing exercise for us is. And so I think that the important thing about the one thing is hopefully, maybe not with the sample size, but we'll have some overlap on numerous different things, right, where people are aligned in the things that they see as important or critical to success. And we can start there. We can start with these things that we all have in common and we're all pulling on the rope the same way. And then we'll look at all of those other individual things. We're going to ask your stakeholders these questions. We're going to ask your community these questions. You guys are just the lucky ones who get to answer the question first. Okay. Looks like we're still waiting for about 8 people.
This is Eric Jenkins. You're going to be waiting on it for a while from me because when I call up chat, it says to Kurt Knappen privately. I really don't want to type a message to Kurt. I got nothing against Kurt, but that doesn't. I don't guess we'll try to go with this. So I don't see any word really enter my chat message.
Okay.
Eric, did you see where it says to Kurt Knappen? If you click on his name, there should be a pull down that gives you the option for all panelists.
Okay. Ah, It does. Thank you.
You hurt my feelings, Eric. I wanted to chat.
I made the same mistake, and so others may have as well.
That's why this is a work session, so that's totally okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy all of these out of the chat, and then we're going to put them up on a slide so they're easier for everybody to read in a little bit of context here. So we're trying to download your information, and then we'll come back to it here after we answer or we get into the second question. Okay, so I think what we want to do now is rotate over to the second question. Okay, and so we've mentioned this numerous times tonight. And this idea that as a staff member, as a member of the Planning Commission, as an elected official, this should be a usable day-to-day plan. This should help you, help guide you in your decision making. It should be hopefully the first thing you're looking to when you have a proposal come in, but it should also be what you're looking for to when you're looking at budgets, when you're looking at priority projects, when you're looking at what are the things that we want to accomplish in trying to reach the goal that we set for ourselves. And so, question number 2, as an elected official, staff member, or planning commission member, what do you need in the plan to use it as a decision-making and policy guide? What can we do to make it better for you to use this on a day-to-day basis? And so one of the things that might be helpful here, if you think about the way your current documents work, are there any things in there that you have jotted down and said, boy, I would like for this to be addressed, or I think this issue should be addressed in the next update, or how can we do this in a different way, or a way that continues to elevate what we're doing as a community? So what can we do to help assist you with that? What can we do to help make your lives easier and better, from access to information to the way it's organized to any of those kinds of things? And I think that one of the things that Darcy mentioned and commented on was this idea of what does a new comprehensive or a modern comprehensive look like. And in many cases that all of us have done, and I've been doing for years, is we put all our existing condition stuff up front, all the mapping about all of that stuff, and the way we are, the way we exist today. Most people, when they open that document, they want to know what we're going to be, what we're going to do, what's our aspiration. And so something simple as formatting and taking those sections and putting them in an appendix in the back so that you can get to the matter, that's a big change in the way that you use a document, right? So we're trying to think through those things to help it be a more effective document for your use. Good comment, Alan. We've got about 5 left here. Well, you guys are going through it. Nice job. Okay. So, we've got a couple left. Teresa, how are we doing on formatting the first? Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Looks like we have everybody has responded. Has anybody not responded yet? Looks like we've got 42 comments in the chat, so that should be about right. Okay. Would you go back? Is that as big as it's going to be? There we go. Okay. Is that the first sheet, the first page?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here's the initial shot at the comments that we got. You guys might want to just go through this and take a quick look at it. And there are certainly some things in here that are in alignment with each other. And we look at multiple comments on community involvement, buy-in, public engagement, robust engagement, minimizing blind spots, high-level public engagement. So obviously that's a key component to this whole thing. And we recognize that, and we have a plan to make sure that we're looking for those blind spots and that we have a way to reassess if we find any during the process and coming back. And then we are going to do our best to reach out to as many people as we possibly can through social media, through online, through paper, through any way that we can to let them know that we're here to ask and understand what they want the future of Shawnee to be. So I think there's some really strong things in here, obviously from on a land use perspective, and this idea of a digest plan, that's come up in several communities we've worked with, this idea that can you give us something that is basically an executive summary so that we can dive in quicker, which we think is an interesting idea. There's a lot of detail layers and complicated issues here, so we strive to be brief and write at a level that everybody can understand. So, okay. Does anybody have any comments on any of these that you see that we're putting up here? Any of the members? And so one of the things that we'll do post tonight is we'll look at all the responses from this and we'll sort of start categorizing them when they're similar to see how many times we're hitting on some of these things. So we start looking at maybe some priority or at least some commonality between the things that you think are most important here as we start this process. Okay. Let's go to the next one if it's ready. Okay. Yep. Just bear with us here for a second. We're going to do some magic.
Just as a reminder, the chat here, the text in the chat will be included in the minutes to this meeting, so no worries that we're not really saying anything. Y'all are saying quite a bit, so just a reminder, it'll be included in the minutes.
So now we're compiling your second list of chat comments here as we get them up for you. After we look at the responses to this question, we really just have a quick overview of next steps here. And then we'll be able to let you guys finish up here, see if you have any comments, and then we'll be done. So Teresa's furiously copying your comments, formatting for you, so they're readable. So we do quite a bit of this stuff on the fly. So thank you for your time. We wish you were here in person so we could see your faces. So. Okay. So, so this looks like it's part of them. As we go through these, the careful vetting of land use, so that as a planning commissioner I can rely on the map. I think that's a really important thing here. We understand from a planning commissioner's role and what they have to do for the community, how important having that solid, one solid map, but solid understanding and backup. And so one of the things that for all of you we think is important is this idea of transparency. And that when we go through our engagement efforts and events, that we're recording all of that stuff exactly as it's given to us. And that stuff shows up in the appendices of the document so that you know that we have listened and we have heard. All of those things that people wish and desire and dream are not going to be able to be incorporated, but that doesn't mean we didn't try. And so we want to make sure that in people's own words, those things are shown to have been at least looked at and referenced in the planning process. And we also want you to have a clear understanding of the amount and the number of times that we engage with your community. So when it comes to the question of, well, there's always seems to be people who say that they weren't notified, they didn't have an idea, this is the first time I've heard of this, and we're in a hearing. We want you to have the backup and the clear understanding of the effort that your staff and that we went through to make sure that we engage with your community along the way, so that you have that really strong footing to understand what that is, so that you have a clarity of understanding our outreach and what we did to make sure that we understood your community. And here we have, that it's clear and transparent. We strive to write down on the grade level for our plans. That's sometimes difficult, but we know that planners love jargon at times, and so we try really hard to write in a way that is clear and understandable to your community and your constituents, so that they can understand the plan that's in front of them. Anybody have any comments on this list of things here when we start talking about what can we do to make it easier for you?
I don't see any at this time.
Okay. Are there any other comments in general about where we're headed, what we're doing, and where we're going from here? I'll go over next steps after this, but is there any comments or questions on the general idea? That was my first thing. What are we doing? So is everybody on the same page? Okay.
I still don't see any heat.
Okay, terrific. Well, let's go to next steps then. Okay, so we are right in the middle of that first step on that roadmap, existing conditions. And so we're working on economic and market analysis, and we're going to be working on the strategic plan integration, and understanding of the work that has happened previous, and how does that inform the way we move forward. We are creating a stakeholder committee, and that is all being finalized. That stakeholder committee is important to this process. We will be using that stakeholder committee to be engaged in all of our events. And that group will help us vet, they will help us, there will be a sounding board for ideas, but I want you to be clear on the idea that I can't have the whole community in every time, every meeting, right? So we have a stakeholder committee that is a cross-section, and we're reaching out to as many different people in your community as is possible. And that group is large. But everything that the stakeholder committee goes through in our open houses, we will take the community, the public, the general public, through those same steps. So we'll do them in a, I say smaller, it's still pretty large group on the stakeholder side. And then the open houses that we have are embedded into the process, and they go through those same steps in an open house format, so that we can get that same information from the general public as well. Again, trying to understand as much as we possibly can, trying to get feedback. What are the good ideas? What are the ideas we don't like? Move the good ideas forward. Leave the ideas that don't fit behind. So we have a public engagement plan and a branding plan that lays out how we communicate with people. What does it look like? How do we drive people to a website that contains all of the information for the project? We're in the middle of development of those things right now. And then October 7th, we will have a virtual visioning workshop for the stakeholder committee. It'll be the kickoff for that group. And it really is about trying to identify wants, needs, desires, and then obstacles and impediments. What are the things that are in our way from being successful? And then after that, what are the things we want to rise up and celebrate and protect? And then after that, that gives us a program understanding or on the way that we develop a step-by-step plan for developing policy and ultimately implementation of those ideas. So if there are any comments, we'd certainly take those now. Otherwise, that concludes our presentation for the evening.
Councilmember Mappin?
Kim, thank you very much. I think everybody's excited to get started. I have one question. I'm just curious how that stakeholder committee is selected.
So far, that stakeholder group has been selected from a bunch of internal to the city, developing a list, and then those people asking other people, who did we miss, et cetera, et cetera. So that list right now is very big. I think it's 160 people maybe at this point. We're great working with big stakeholder groups. What we want to make sure is that one group isn't overrepresented, right? So that might skew conversation, et cetera. We want to make sure anybody isn't underrepresented. And so we're trying to make sure that all of those things are filled in. But I will tell you, we're not developing this because this isn't our community. And so we're asking for help of staff and other folks to tell us what that primary list is. And then we're looking at it and saying, okay, in our experience, we need to make sure that we have, these people involved and these people involved, and where are the neighborhood groups, and where are the real estate people, and where are the minority communities, where are all of those people that we want to make sure have a voice in this process. The great thing about this is, and I would tell you, regardless of whatever the list looks like when it comes out, we always add people. We always forget somebody, right? We always forget that one great person we all should have remembered, who is connected to this group and this group and that group. That's okay, we'll just add them. It is not a static group. It is really a group, it is not a steering group, right? This is a stakeholder group to make sure that we get feedback from as many different people in your community as we can. And that they may represent a different viewpoint than the next person standing next to them. Most communities have a group of, when we say stakeholder, they say, oh, well, we've got 30 people. And we say, that's not enough, right? We need more. And so we're excited. We're really excited that it might be, if you invite 120 or 140 people, you might get 60 or 70 there to be engaged with you. And so we're really excited about that. And what that possibility might be. So
sounds good and very inclusive. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, I would be a little concerned if everyone being recommended is coming from the same source, though, versus kind of like we do with our parks committee and things like that, where different council members can recommend people and then get more of a diverse viewpoint versus all of them coming from a single source of like staff or something. So I'm a little concerned with the list. I have not seen the list, but I'm a little concerned of whether it is the diversity of it. So that I can only speak to a list that I have not seen. Councilmember Chaffee and then Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It's very exciting. I'm excited to be a part of it. My only question for right now is just how any concerns related to COVID-19 will affect this process or alter it from the way that you have been doing it for years and years, and just sort of how those obstacles are going to be overcome and still, try to do this within a year or so, knowing that we don't really know, what the next year will look like.
Sure. Well, I would tell you, March 17th is when I started working from home. I wouldn't have had a clear answer for you, except we have been doing for many years this idea of engaging online and engaging in person. And we love engaging in person with people, right? But we always had an online presence because of the difficulty of people in their schedules. And there are quite a few people who don't want to come to meetings anymore because of what has happened to them in previous meetings and those experiences and all of those kinds of things. And so we, for many years, have crafted an in-person experience that doesn't allow a lot of those kinds of things to happen. So we're really strong in person. Now, in the world of COVID, we had transitioned almost completely to online, although I would tell you we've got numerous clients in different parts of the country that are still running in-person stuff. But the visioning session itself will be all virtual. We have some really amazing tools, and virtual becomes all about the effort put in up front and the tools that you have and the understanding we have in using them. So we're very confident in the way that we can take very large numbers of people, that we can put them in small conversation groups, and we can get them to comment and answer and be engaged and involved, and really get great feedback. And the one thing we're finding out is in many ways people are more engaged now than they were in the past. They are more thoughtful. They have more time. Instead of running through an open house in an hour, they have the opportunity to read the information that's there. They have the opportunity to think about it, and then they have an opportunity to respond in their own time. And so we're capitalizing on that in many ways, both on our open houses and in our visioning sessions and also in our charrettes. And so we are very confident in the way that we can do this. We're doing it for most of our other clients who aren't still willing to have in-person stuff. And so I think you can get really good, meaningful, thorough, and understanded feedback during this time of COVID. And then, who knows, we're not going to do anything or even propose anything that is an in-person event before the end of the year. And then, we'll just reassess. I would say that is the one thing that we all are getting really good at is just being flexible and then being able to react to changing time. So we continue to do that and see great success right now in the last 6 months.
Okay, we have Councilmember Thomas and then Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take an opportunity to echo your concern that you had about the selection of these folks. And when the statement was made that they're being selected by staff and others, I'm still not sure who others are or what staff, but what I do know is, especially since COVID, I think it existed prior to this time, but I think there's a trust issue. And when our citizens who do not engage with staff so many times aren't selected, I think it can be viewed as a weighted opportunity in one direction or another. And so I think it's really important that we be very diverse in how we select these folks to serve in this capacity to represent Shawnee. I am concerned about only virtual because there are people within our community who don't have computers. They don't have PCs in their home. They don't know how to operate them or something such as that. So we're automatically eliminating a demographic of people that would be limiting to the diversity of the input. So those are just a few thoughts I had, and I don't want to say lack of trust in a negative tone, but I think it does exist. In fact, I know it exists, and so that's why I took this opportunity to bring it up. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Councilmember Jenkins?
Well, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to concur with everything Tammy just said, and I certainly appreciate the mayor bringing this up and throwing it before everybody, because we know people in our wards that would probably be pretty good contributors to this effort, and they may or may not show up on these committees. I don't know, but they certainly will show up on the committees when it's time to take exception to something that's going on within their neighborhoods or their wards. So I'd sure like to get some more buy-in from these people so that the product we get has been more thoroughly vetted. And I think it's just really essential. Thank you.
Mayor, can I chime in?
Yes.
I just want to reiterate that this list is not final, and we are more than happy, and that's kind of why we had this conversation tonight, to bring this up and let this group know that, again, it's not final, and it's diverse, at least to the point where all boards and commissions are invited, HOAs, nonprofit, our faith community. We're still compiling this list to make sure that we do reach all of those community members, especially those that may not have been engaged in the past. While COVID is prohibitive, at least right now, to have those in person, we're really looking at how we can have opportunities, at least in the future, maybe after the first of the year, to have those in-person meetings, because Councilmember Thomas, you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that we're reaching out to all of our community, and how can we reach those that may not have internet or may not have social media. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching those, and we're hoping that this really diverse stakeholder committee, and by committee, we are saying a large group of people. I think the list right now is at 160 and still growing. So we are more than happy to get feedback from this group. Moving forward, you let us know who you want on that list. You are going to see the list before it's finalized. And so I just wanted to reiterate that, again, it's not final and it's still growing every day.
Thank you. Councilmember Zimmerman and then Commissioner Busby.
So just quickly, thank you very much for your time this evening. Very informative. One of your last bullets that I saw was a note about capturing existing conditions. I assume that's for benchmarking purposes.
Correct.
Can you just very briefly, what's the plan? If you got benchmark, you're going to be doing some kind of a check, some kind of a feedback, some kind of a corrective action process as we move forward. Can you articulate that a little bit for us so that we know what this process looks like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And thanks again.
You bet. And so when we talk about analyzing existing conditions, right, in a lot of cases, we're talking about understanding flood areas and natural areas, your transportation system, your existing land uses, the demographics of your community, the market as it exists today and how you interact within that market currently. What are the things that are happening economically from a leakage standpoint, from a opportunity for growth standpoint, et cetera. And so what we do is we put all of those things together as that background data, and then we move forward from there. And the economic side of things, we'll have a report that talks about the things that are supportable within your community based on its part in the marketplace, about absorption and leakage, et cetera, right? So that's economically, we'll address that. The way that we get at the other things is through a lot of these not initial as we go through a lot of these workshops, is identifying issues and then presenting pathways or concepts to address those issues, either to support the things that are working well and enhance those, or to mitigate the things that are a problem or preventing success. And so that iterative process of developing multiple options and concepts and then weighing those against the things that you said you wanted to do and be and were your goals is how we narrow this. And so we look at this as a funnel. We put all of those initial ideas in the top of that funnel, And every time we vet this out with the stakeholder group, the public, and yourselves, those things travel down that funnel. And so what we hope comes out, the whole point of this process, and what comes out of the funnel is a consensus-built, community-built plan that has support of your community, it has support of the decision makers along the way, that we're not just going, okay, here's a plan at the end of the process. And so that takes a lot of engagement, that takes a lot of time in working and understanding what those issues are and then how to put a plan together. That's one of the reasons that we have Clarion on the team, is their expertise in understanding the bigger picture and policy and how you frame policy to reach your goals. And so that's how all of those things start working together. In the end, we'll have a matrix that talks about, here's what you want to do, here's your goals, here is that policy, and then here are the actions, the ownership, the time horizon in which those things can and should or will occur, so that you have an action plan along the way.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Busby?
Thank you, Mayor Dissler. The question is, will a stakeholder list be available and sent to the people who are on tonight's panel?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see, Councilmember Jenkins. You're muted.
Just one more thing, I was getting unmuted there. Caitlin mentioned the homeowner associations and so on as far as reaching out. I've been president of a homeowner association for the last 4 or 5 years, and not once have I got any communication from the city in any kind of formal fashion. So it may be time to go back and look at those homeowner association mailing lists and contact directories and see if we've got people down correctly. Perfect example of where this is broken down was just the most recent one, where they that building right up there on 55th Street, that's almost adjacent to Plum Woods. I had no idea what was going in there until I started hearing from the neighbors and checked it out. But it's kind of interesting that we weren't contacted as a homeowner association on that. And I know the Plum Woods HOA would probably be very helpful and useful to moving forward with that project. So just a cautionary note there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Willoughby?
You're muted, sir.
Commissioner Willoughby?
Oh, here I am. Thanks for the presentation. I do have one question about, we talk about community involvement, and I think that other than the survey, the survey that we do, I think the community involvement is very lacking, and so to get the community involved, I mean, the only time they do get involved is when we step on somebody's toes, with a mill levy or a project or a new tax or whatever. But other than that, we don't see a lot of city involvement, a lot of just resident involvement in what's going on in the city, So how do you plan on getting there, How do you plan on getting this community involvement?
Thank you. Great question. So a real key here is this idea of communication and networks, right? We're going to do a lot of the normal channels. We're going to do press releases. We're going to engage social media. We're going to have a dedicated website for the project. It's a one-stop shop for all of the stuff regarding the project. We're going to drive everybody to that website for the most current information. And so we're going to do everything we can do in that way. But I would tell you that one of the key things here is to get the stakeholder group, when it's formed, and use their networks to get the word out, to let them talk to their people and let them know what's going on, and to become involved. This process we're getting ready to embark on is an aspirational process, right? It's a what do we as a community want to be? And so it's not a controversial single case. It's not a individual boring piece of text change. This is about who do we want to be as a community to ourselves and to everyone else outside of Shawnee. And so we're gonna pull on those heartstrings and say, if you want to craft what your community wants to be, then we need you to be involved. We need you to step up and be there. And ultimately, they're going to make the choice. We're going to make the case, and they're going to make the choice. And so we're going to make it as easy as possible. We're going to try to be fun and engaging. But we have work to do here. We have a lot of work to do, and it's a lot of responsibility. And so we're going to try to do all of those things to bring them along and get them involved in the project. But ultimately, it's their choice. So.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, and we are about at time. So if there are no other questions or comments, this item was for informational purposes only. There are no other items, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Eric Jenkins.
Second, Tammy Thomas.
Thank you. Commissioner Busby, I saw your hand just went up.
Yes. Tomorrow morning at 5 when I wake up with this great epiphany on how we can add all this stuff together. Since I don't have Ken's email or Tracy's or Darcy's, who should I email at 5 in the morning?
You can always send it to me. I'm up.
Okay. Is there somebody from the city on the just general questions that we should send it to? Is it Caitlin or is it Noah?
It's Doug Allman, our Community Development Director.
I'm the point of,
I'm sorry?
I'm the point of contact, Dennis, for any council person, any resident, anybody who has any input or a question or even wants to know what the time or day a meeting might be. Please have them contact me through email, especially. It'd be great.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mayor Dissler.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. The regularly scheduled city council meeting will begin at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.